So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hello, everybody. Want to welcome you to Bible News Radio. Yeah, it is. Take a moment here to enjoy this upbeat music for a minute as we welcome everybody into the show. It is, after all, Monday. Yeah, it is. Thank you, Melanie and John. Welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Those of you guys coming in to the replay, of course, I want to thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you. Be sure to leave a comment so I can say hi, because if you're not my friend, I can't tell, and it's a secret. All right. Also, if you're on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment there, and if you don't mind, share it out. You guys can share this out on all platforms. You can share it out on Twitter, on Facebook, every platform possible you can share it out on. And there's Jason. Hey, Jason. Thank you for coming in. And Randall, how's place? Let's see if I see anybody else here. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the rise of Christian persecution in America. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to play you the interview that we did at NRB with worship leader from Arizona named Jesse Pruett. He was actually a delight. He has a brand new CD out called The Journey, and he was so cool. He's older than he looks, I can tell you that, but he was super fun, and he thought we were fun, which, you know, just saying, he was right. Hello, Minnesota lady. Thanks for coming in. So we're going to play that the first half hour, and we're going to play some music off his CD. And then we're going to talk about some stories. I have headlines like YouTube censoring a fellow broadcaster that I know, court ruling in favor of transgender individual, a man called Jesus Christianity. Yeah, that's true. His name is Jesus Christianity. You're going to enjoy that story. There's been a pastor and his wife assaulted, and the wife died, murdered. Here in America. We're going to talk about that too. And if we have more time, we'll talk about other stuff too, including dinosaur news, which Bareface definitely wants to talk about. So, welcome, JM. Yeah, you are. And thank you for the email you sent me the other day. I totally appreciate it. Okay, so let's start, because we got a lot to cover this hour. Tomorrow, I have an interview. Wednesday, I have an interview. Thursday, I have guests. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I have guests. So this is going to be the only day, and of course Friday, that I get to cover news. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump into the interview that we did with Jesse Pruett. Let me first tell you a little bit about him, okay? He is a worship leader, recording artist, composer, actor, and he was born in San Diego, California. He was signed to his first record deal right out of high school, and he formed the indie rock band called Parker Theory in the summer of 2000, and he has released 4 albums and 2 EPs. He's been heard on MTV, VH1, NBC, ABC, the CW. Isn't that Channel 5? I think it is.
Depending where you are in the country.
Yeah. He has been on stage with people like Switchfoot and POD, One Republic, other people. And also, he has been in films with Robert De Niro, Liam Hemsworth, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, and John Cusack. Yeah, he has. He's currently the worship arts pastor at Calvary Baptist Church in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And he continues to act, write, record, release music through Parker Theory and other projects. And you can go to his website. It's jessepruett.com. And that's JESSEPRUETT.com. jessepruett.com. So it was an honor. He was one of the very first interviews I did at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention a couple of weeks ago. I can't believe it's already been a couple of weeks. But he was so delightful. I just have to say, he was totally delightful. We were in the media room, but unfortunately, there was some imposter. No, they weren't. There was so many people in the media room that Randall told me that I actually haven't seen this, by the way. I have not seen my actual interview with him, so I don't even know how I look or whatever. But Randall says that there's a couple of parts of it that are a little bit hard to hear, but that's okay. It's, you're in a media room and there's gazillions of people around. So
yeah, it was a national conference, and so there were hundreds of people there, if not thousands. There were hundreds of people in the media conference room, and they had it divided up into booths. Let's say they were just really curtain dividers, but they were separated by some distance, like a quarter between them. So there was some sort of buffer. But then this particular radio crew decided to set up shop in between
the nerve
in between the booths, and so right behind the curtain of where we were. And so, quite noisy as people were conducting a show and people congregating there. And it was after that I switched things around and had our guests against the wall.
Was this before we had the microphone between us too?
No, it was there, but
okay. Well, anyway, you guys should be able to hear it. I want to say hi to Advar and Liz, who came in, and Celeste, Jonathan, and I think who else? I don't know who else is here, but thank you guys for coming in, and feel free to share it out. Okay, so here is our exclusive interview from National Religious Broadcasters Convention with worship leader Jesse Pruett.
Whoops. One moment, please.
And Kim, I see Kim has also joined over on Facebook. Thanks for coming on over.
All right.
Yeah, you found it. Thanks for coming in, Kimberly.
Here it is.
Pillar of the community. All right. Hey, everybody. It's me, your sweet and lovable host. And today we have an awesome interview with Jesse Pruett, who is a worship singer and a pastor type guy. And he's got super cool hair. He's wearing a black jacket like me. High five. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, welcome to Bible News Radio. We are unique. But then again, so are you.
Yes. I like uniqueness.
Yeah, I do. So you have a brand new CD. Tell me about it, because I actually listened to some of it and I really liked it.
Yeah, so the new album's called The Journey, and in the past I put out a lot of records from touring and doing that whole thing, and became a worship pastor was in a church about 6 years. And still want to do that creative side. So this is my second solo album. It's called The Journey, and it really just talks about my walk and faith and journey with Christ, and about hope and love and encouragement and forgiveness. All that good stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, were you in the band before? I probably should know this, right? Don't hate me. But,
no.
No?
Yeah, I was in a band before called Parker Theory, and I did that for a long time. And we toured and played with bands like Smash Mouth and Switchfoot and P.O.D. Jason Mraz and all them, so that whole genre. And I did that for a long time, put out 6 records, and then now I'm on my second solo album. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, are you with a label, or did you do?
I'm not. This one is a self-release. So, yeah.
You know what? Reclaim your music, man.
That's right.
That's what I always say.
Own all the rights.
Kickstarter. Or whatever, Hey, Sherry Kane, you did it. You can do it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, okay.
I actually did a lot of my records. Would fund it myself, or if somebody else partnered with, and then license it out to record labels all over the world. So then they put it out, and you get to keep all the rights.
Yeah. You know what? People don't, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves. People will download music off the internet for free. Yeah. They'll rip it off, and they don't realize you guys, you're losing money.
Yeah, that's how we make a living.
Yeah. I have one friend that does it, and I always want to Because he does that. But okay, so tell me a little bit about your background and what you do, because my listeners, they will buy your CDs. I told them to go buy a CD, people.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding about buying the CD.
Yeah,
Mike's there.
So my story, I was raised in church, and
I'm sorry.
that's when I started playing music. And but after high school, I definitely had my moment where I wanted to just go do my thing. I still, loved God, but was not following Him. And so I went on my own path. And eventually, after that, just was not, started drinking and doing all this stuff that I shouldn't have. And I moved back to San Diego and walked back into church and was just like literally in tears because I'm like, Lord, I need you. Yeah, I want to follow you. And so I began that path, of following God. And then, so I did Park Theory for years. And then in 2009, started acting. So I've been working a lot with Lionsgate and build relationships there. And then
so what, have you been in any name films?
Yeah, so I've been working with I've done 6 films with Bruce Willis. I just finished 3, so 2 of those were with Sylvester Stallone and Bruce, and then I worked with The Rock. I'm just trying to, you guys can look all that stuff up.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just this worship pastor working with all these people. It's been crazy. It's really been crazy. So I'm so excited because I just finished my 20th film last couple weeks ago.
That's awesome.
So flew back home and now, preparing for the journey. But anyway, so I started doing that, and then I was scoring for a feature film, doing scoring soundtrack with a friend of mine in Havasu. And another friend came up and was like, my wife's from Havasu. And they're like, man, there's this church Calvary who needs a worship leader. You should come here. And I'm like, we're never going to move to Lake Havasu. So we're in, and once I said that, then it was like, okay, what's God want to do now?
God's like,
he's like, okay.
I'll show you, mister.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful I listened. And they asked me if I'd come out and help for a couple of months. I ended up meeting with them and saying hi. So I helped them for a few months, and once I was there, I was like, man, I really feel like this is where God is calling our family. My wife's like, okay, let's go. And what?
Yeah,
all right,
and your
Lord.
wife, see, that's the thing.
And I was like, wow, okay, if we're both confirming this. And then so we moved there, and it really has been incredible for our family, and the church has been growing and doing incredible things there, and so it's been really cool get to do all these different creative things as well.
I call that shuffling the deck. See, God takes His people and goes, that's where you're at. There you are. Ace of Spades. Ha! You're in Lake Havasu. Sorry.
And I thought, honestly, I was like, well, I'll move to Havasu, probably never do film, or I don't know if I'm going to get to keep doing records, and the doors just keep opening everywhere. And I'm like, all right, Lord, your way is so much better than mine. And to have the family support there for church and everything has been incredible too. To keep, the ground and keep and have accountability.
Yep.
And all that stuff. So
that's important.
It's really
important. In all seriousness, a lot of people, I know a lot of creatives because I interview lots of people, right? And you hear the testimonies of people who've gone off the deep end, and I don't mean that in a mean way.
No, I know what you're saying.
But they're like, yeah, I think this will be better. But then what they don't realize is that God has also called a lot of His people into that field in order to minister to other people. And people know, like Billy Graham just died, right? But how many people know the guy's name that led him to faith? You know what I mean? And I think that we're all that way with somebody. And, the lives that you're touching there as a worship pastor, I think, honestly, the worship pastor is probably a more important role than the actual pastor. Because there's more fights over worship music in the church. There is. Just saying, people.
There is.
Just admit it. You only go to church because you like the music. I mean, it's just horrible, right? That's why I said, bless your heart for being raised in church. I wasn't raised in church. I didn't have that blessing. And it is a blessing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People raised in church and then they go off the deep end, or they go, like what you did. You're like, oh, I'm going to try this worldly stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd that work for you, huh?
Not so great. So.
Hey, the light went off.
Oh,
well, whatever.
That's okay. So, I'm so grateful, to be a follower of Jesus Christ and to I rebuilt that relationship because it's been great. But I really do feel that God uses each one of us and each one of you in the area that we're in. We all need to be doing different things. If we're all doing the same thing, how are we going to reach other people and lead people to Jesus?
That would be so boring.
It would be boring.
It would be boring.
So, whatever you guys are doing in your life, I just want to encourage you as well that God can use you in anything that you do if you allow Him.
Amen. Well, okay, so your CD, tell me a little bit about some of the songs.
Here is the new album coming out March 9th. So this is The Journey.
That's very cool.
And then we've got 11 songs on here. Can't Stop Singing. I did one cover, I Saw the Light. I wrote an original bridge to it.
I heard that. Yeah.
And then I had kids sing,
That's important.
This little line of mine, my kiddos and some others.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
My kids are 11 and 7. So my daughter Ava is 11 and my son Jackson is 7.
Aw, 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
Go there for your Slurpees. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, you know about 7-Eleven, right?
Oh yeah, California. So
not here in Tennessee.
Not here.
They don't even know what that
is. Not Arizona either. So.
That's so cool. Okay, so where can people get your CD?
Yeah, so they can download CDs on iTunes, Amazon, all the digital outlets. And The Journey's coming out March 9th. So it's not out yet, but it will be soon.
Yeah. All right, JessePruett.com. Okay,
Yes.
My tagline is be bold, stand up, go with God. How can somebody be bold, stand up, and go with God?
To be bold, I just think that you, because I had to learn this too, like in the movie world, walking in and declining parts and things.
Yeah.
Be bold in everything you do and just stand up for your belief and follow the word. I really feel that's important in everything that we do. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my encouragement. Don't change for the world.
No.
Be how God made you.
That's right. Be who you are.
Be who you are.
And don't change your gender.
And uniqueness is great.
Yes, it is. Quirky is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. All right, everybody. This is an exclusive interview from NRB 2018. Proclaim 18.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so there you go. So that was the first time I saw it. Now I know why people say they have fun, because I am fun. Just so you know, if I do say so myself. Okay, so you guys want to hear a cut from the CD? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play a song. So I'm going to get myself out of Facebook for a minute just because the sound is on there. And I'm going to play a cut from the CD. It's called At the Cross. And here it is. Let me turn up some volume so I can play it and hear it. It's going to take a second to buffer, but here it is. So this is Jesse Pruett. It's called At the Cross. First time ever on Bible News Radio. From his new CD called The Journey. Yeah, it is.
In my sorrow, I won't walk away. Even when it hurts, I'll remember the words you say. You are for me. You are not against me. And the promises that you make are unbreakable. At the cross, at the cross, I'm reminded of what it cost. At the cross, you suffered and gave it nothing can separate us from your love.
Amen. All right. So that was called At the Cross. And again, that's Jesse Pruett from his new CD called The Journey. If you go to jessepruett.com, you can learn more. And that's JESSEPRUETT. Okay. Pruett.com. So check it out. I'm hoping we don't get flagged for this on Facebook or YouTube. But that wasn't that good, you guys? That was so super cool. I love that. It was actually the first time I heard the whole song. I actually only played a couple of minutes of it prior to the show. But yeah, Kim, isn't his voice cool? Yeah, it is. Well, that's why he's a worship leader, I think, you know. So very, very cool. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to thank our sponsor, Ariel Ministries, because without them sponsoring our show, you guys would not have access to a ton of other great resources. They have blessed us so much. So I want to just remind you, you can go over to ariel.org and use the coupon code Bible News whenever you get anything over there. And actually, you know, what I want to encourage you to do is get the series that we are promoting over on our BibleNewsRadio.com site. If you go over to our resources page, you'll see a whole bunch of things from Muddle. It's M-O, but it's ooh. Muddle Balsted, who is a Messianic rabbi teacher. He's not a rabbi anymore, technically. He's just a Messianic Bible teacher. But there's a lot of things over there on the website. They're all DVDs. And I have to tell you, his teaching is awesome. If you've loved the interviews that we've done with him here, you're going to love his teaching. And you can click on each of the different ones that are on the website, like Messiah in the Fall Holy Days of Israel DVD set. If you click on that, it will tell you what it's about, remind you to use the coupon code. And also, I don't want you to forget that this month, March, we are giving away their free Bible study. I think it's 42 pages. It's called Demonology, the Doctrine of Fallen Angels. So there's a lot of fluff and baloney in the church out there. A lot of people who think they know about spiritual warfare, but they really don't. Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum actually goes through this whole study, and he actually explains the role of demons, what they're all about, you know, their function, all that stuff. And it's yours free. Usually you have to pay for this, but you don't have to this month. So go down there, click it. The PDF will download on your app. Okay. Also, I want to let you know that we are partnering with Bullhorn, which is a mobile app. And so if you guys download the mobile app Bullhorn, right there, it's awesome. It's mentioned right there on our page as well. If you just download that to your phone, I have exclusive content that I'm putting there. And just so you know, I am only putting up things 15 minutes or less, with the exception of the thing that Randall and I did last night, which I think was about 20 minutes. But we're going to be doing an interview with the author of THB, Randy Dawkins, in a couple of weeks on there. I have my exclusive interview with Roma Downey, Touched by an Angel, fame on there, which I haven't aired yet here on Bible News Radio, and I'm still not sure I'm going to, actually. I think I might just leave it there on Bullhorn to make, you know, so you can go there and listen to it. But anyway, go there, download the app, then follow me, Bible News Radio, or just look up my name, Stacey Lynn Harp. I will follow you back. And every morning I post something, and depending on if I have time in the evening to give you a heads up on what's going on the show in the evening, I might too. But it's really good apps. Check it out. Especially if you're somebody who wants to network and stuff. This is what I can tell you about the owners of this. The people behind the app, well, that own it, is actually freeconferencecall.com, which is one of the largest conferencing services around, right? And they're Christians. And so they promised me that they would never, ever, ever censor me. And this is very important to me personally, because we're living in a growing hostility towards Christianity. And the remainder of this show is going to show you that. You know, when I look for news for the show, I look for certain categories, but sometimes the headlines just stand out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the theme through all of the stories I'm going to share with you tonight is Christian persecution in America. The app is called Bullhorn. Bullhorn, like a bullhorn. Like, hey, there's Bullhorn. So Bullhorn. You can find it in Apple and iTunes. And if you're on my email list, that's the other thing I forgot to tell you. Don't forget to join my email list, because I'm putting in every email, I'm putting in our guest. I'm writing either a devotion or a commentary on the news of the day and everything. I spend a lot of time putting together my email every day. And I actually have the link to the Bullhorn thing in there too. So go to BibleNewsRadio.com, join our email list if you haven't, you know, and be a part of the crowd. Okay. Also, want to just give a shout out to all my pillars of the community. A number of you are here in the room, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for partnering with us by donating every month to the show. Randall and I really, really appreciate it. And I actually just put some I just put some news in our Pillar of the Community group on Facebook. I think Melanie saw it. The guest that I just got booked today is probably, to my knowledge, the guest. He has international fame. You will know who he is for sure if you know anything about the Christian world. And he has a reach of at least 50 million people. I think that's the largest social media influence reach that I have seen on any guest I've ever had. Just saying. That guest will come up soon. I'll tell you who it is later. But pillars, no. Just so you know. Okay, Randall, do you have any comments or anything before we jump into some of the news?
No, I'm just going through the pillar slides real quick since it was briefly mentioned.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to do that. All right, so the first story I wanted to bring up, because this one is like the craziest ever. It's the man called Jesus Christianity, okay? Okay. Yeah, I said, okay. All right. First of all, I had to verify whether or not this story was actually true. So I contacted my friend Janet Mefford, who does a radio show of herself. And I said, Janet, can you tell me if you think this is legit or not? And so she did some research, messaged me and said, yes, this is legit. So I was like, you got to be crazy. I mean, in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, okay. Okay, so this article is titled, Man Called Jesus Christianity, Jailed for Shouting Bible Passages and Making a Bomb Threat. Yeah, that's what Jesus would do, right? This is actually breaking news today. So it comes out of Wales. So it says here, a man has been jailed for threatening to blow up a gay pride march and shouting Bible passages at people. Jesus Christianity. Apparently this dude had his name changed. I'm pretty sure his mom and dad didn't name him that. Just so you know, I'd be really surprised. 34 years old, started shouting, "It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Adam," on a train to Cardiff where the march was due to take place. He also told that gay people were disgusting and was in possession of a toy gun. During his sentencing, he repeatedly blessed himself with the sign of the cross before he was put behind bars for 17 months. Prosecutor Gareth James said, when the passengers got off, he said to one of them, "I'm going to Pride now, and I've got a bomb in my backpack." One of the witnesses called police, and Christianity was arrested in the city center. Do you realize how hard it is for me not to laugh at reading this? Because, yeah, I mean, I'm not laughing at the content. I'm laughing at the called police and Christianity. I mean, that's, you know, his last name. Anyway, he said he wasn't actually carrying a bomb, and there's no evidence that he was planning an attack. However, he was arrested again weeks later after threatening to burn his block of flats down. That's a house, in case you didn't know that, because he was irritated by workmen in a neighbor's house. Ruth Smith, defending, said Christianity had no intent to blow up the gay pride event in August of last year, and said he suffered from clear psychiatric difficulties. You think? Miss Smith said these are spontaneous reactions to things that he finds stressful to him. He says he has no hostility towards people who are gay. He took no steps on either occasion to act upon the threats he made. He has been diagnosed with anxiety. There's clear psychiatric difficulties, but psychiatrists have not always been in agreement about his diagnosis. Gee, I wonder why. She added, Christianity had a dislike of public transport, which led his homophobic outbursts. Judge Neil Bitter, QC, said he accepted Christianity, was not a terrorist, and was sorry for his verbal attacks, but said he was motivated by hostility to homosexuality. He said, on the spur of the moment, you shouted homophobic remarks to people who were clearly on their way to the Pride event in Cardiff City Centre. It was upsetting to those whom were affected. You were carrying a bag on your back and you said you had a bomb. These type of incidents puts strain on already stretched police resources. I do take the view you are at the time suffering from psychotic illness. Clearly. So let me just make this comment unequivocally and unashamedly. I condemn the behavior of this idiot who calls himself Jesus Christianity, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I personally find this highly offensive as a Christian, that he would not only change his name to something that I consider, offensive, but the fact that he's threatening to blow up gay pride parades because he condemns homosexuality is unacceptable in my sight and in God's sight, I might add. This isn't how civilized people work. And, what's interesting about this, I'm going to make this very clear. He never identifies himself as a Christian. Okay? That's very clear. He never says, by the way, I'm a Christian. By the way, I hold Christian beliefs. By the way, I'm a follower of Jesus. But instead, what he does is he takes the name of Jesus and the faith of Christianity and makes a mockery of it by apparently changing his name to this. So this is absolutely disgusting. I find it personally revolting on its face. And of course, I have compassion for this individual who is clearly mentally ill. If I ever saw somebody mentally ill, it would be this kid. 34, I guess he's a kid to me. I guess I'm a little bit older. But this is, it's unacceptable. I mean, it's ridiculous. It didn't happen here in America. It happened in Wales, which is probably a little bit more progressive than here in America. But I don't know, Randall, your thoughts on this? Because yeah.
Well, it's tragic all the way around. The fact that he calls himself Jesus Christianity. I don't know if he legally changed his name or what.
Yeah, it doesn't say in the article.
Yeah, it doesn't say in the article. But yeah, can he disagree with homosexuality? Certainly that's a biblical position, but bomb threats and say he has a toy gun, which is weird. Obviously the guy is unhinged. He was threatening to burn down his apartment complex because of workmen that were there. He was irritated by. While these things probably are fairly rare, they are probably occur more than once a year. Just unhinged people shouting, unfavorable things at various people because there's workmen in their apartment complex or because, whatever. But, I think this gets attention, international attention, because of because of the nature of it. It's directly pits, by name anyway.
Right.
It associates hatred of gays with Christianity. And so no wonder it makes the press. And
yeah,
and it's way off. He certainly doesn't represent Christianity, even though Christianity... though Ruth, whoever was representing Christianity, his defense attorney.
Yeah, if he called himself Jerry Smith, he wouldn't get half the attention. You're right.
Exactly.
And you know what? This is what bothers me. It's because this is the type of this is how Christians are pigeonholed. And the title of our show is Christian Persecution Rising in America. This was out of the UK, but I had to share it just because. It's like, seriously, this is, okay, look, this is what Christians have to deal with. And one of the things that stands out to me in the article, especially because I'm a clinically trained therapist, is that the people that he clearly saw for treatment, it says there that he saw people, they were, they couldn't agree on a diagnosis. Well, my first thought was, okay, he's maybe he's schizophrenic, maybe he's hearing voices, because that's pretty common, especially with people who identify themselves as Jesus. They often think they're Jesus, okay? So part of me wonders if he's not schizophrenic. Another part of me, it says anxiety. Okay, well, we all have anxiety in some degree, but not enough to change our name. And I seriously doubt, like, his parents named him that. So I look at that, and then I think, well, maybe Tourette's. Maybe he has a little bit of Tourette's, because he has these outbursts that he apparently can't control. So I don't know, but we condemn it, just so you know. Pray for the guy, because he clearly needs it. All right, coming back to America, YouTube has censored, if you guys don't know, YouTube is censoring a lot of conservatives and a lot of Christians. I have a number of friends who no longer have content on YouTube because YouTube is banning them, or they're demonetizing them. My friend L.A. Marzulli, he told me when we were at this conference last year that he was bringing in about $3,000 a month from his videos, and YouTube all of a sudden cut him off. Why? I don't know. But we suspect it's because of the content that he was sharing, which is biblical in nature, conservative. And so now our friends over at TruNews.com has been banned from posting new video for the next 2 weeks. And apparently they've done this because of a podcast that has been up on YouTube for almost 4 years. The podcast is titled Wolfgang Halbig, Sandy Hook Deception, and according to the TruNews.com website, it was flagged for review and deemed a violation of its, quote, community guidelines, unquote. So you guys can go to TruNews.com. You can look that up and read it. It stood out to me. I actually have met the people at TruNews. I've actually been on TruNews. I was a guest. Rick Wiles actually interviewed me No, actually I wasn't a guest. He was a guest on our show. I interviewed Rick Wiles a number of years ago. But this doesn't surprise me. TruNews is out there. They have, they do all political content for the most part. They're not like us. We're more of a Christian worldview show, even though they are believers over there. YouTube has censored them. And so just be aware. Remember, let's not forget, YouTube is owned by Google, right? And Google's mission, ultimately, is, quote, to have the mind of God. So everything attached to Google is, attached to people who want to have the mind of God, people. So there you go for that one. Okay. In other news, this comes from the Detroit News. As you know, we've covered the homosexual lobby on this show quite a bit. Because Randall and I have actually gone inside the belly of the whale, so to speak, and we have been to homosexual conferences. I've been to a couple myself, so I know what I'm talking about when I talk about the agenda. Keep in mind, I'm not talking about any person. I'll make that very clear up front. The agenda of the LGBT lobby is to silence Christians. It's true. If you contact most of the religious liberty law firms that defend Christians, the overwhelming majority of them are because of the LGBT lobby. And these are the ones that we know about. In the last couple of years, they have really pressed the transgender movement. And you know what's going to happen next is bisexuality is going to come to the forefront. And they're already starting to roll out the push for the B in LGBT. It's interesting. They went to the L and then the G. They've skipped the B and they've gone to T, right? And what's interesting to me about this is that I know people who advocate in this community who are Christians, who identify as Christian and gay. And if you do your research and you actually know what you're talking about and you actually do the research, bisexuality is actually something that not a lot of people are talking about, but more people are going to. And it's more prevalent in women, and various things are coming out about that. But for the last year or two, the transgender lobby, which is like 0.000 something like that percentage of the population, it's everywhere. Amazon Prime did a whole show called Transparent on it, which, by the way, I think has been canceled. I'm not sure on that, but I mean, they have been doing this push everywhere. And anybody who says that this lobby isn't trying to silence Christians or Catholics or Mormons or people with religious faith that believe marriage is one man and one woman and believe that there's two genders only, you're misinformed, because they are. That's why all of these laws are in place. And so this story comes out of Detroit, and it's titled Court Rules for Fired Transgender Funeral Director. I'm going to read this. It says the Federal Appeals Court on Wednesday ruled in favor of a woman, read man, this is a man, not a woman, who said she was illegally fired by a Garden City funeral home after disclosing she was transitioning from male to female and dressed as a woman. This is a man, not a girl, just so you know. The 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled R.G. and G.R. Harris Funeral Home discriminated against director Amy Stevens, and I don't know what his real name is, but apparently he goes by Amy now, by firing her in 2013. And believe me, in my mind, I'm saying the other pronoun because he's actually, a man, not a girl. Anyway, the decision returns the case to a federal judge who had dismissed the lawsuit filed by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The EEOC learned through its investigation that until October 2014, the funeral home provided clothing to male workers dealing with the public, but not females. The appellate judges said it was responsible for the EEOC to investigate and discover the seemingly discriminatory clothing allowance policy. U.S. District Judge Sean Cox ruled in 2016 that the funeral home met its burden of showing that enforcement of the Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which bars employment discrimination, would impose a substantial burden on its ability to conduct business in accordance with its sincerely held religious beliefs. The appellate judges countered in Wednesday's opinion that discrimination against employees, either because of their failure to conform to sex stereotypes or their transgender and transitioning status, is illegal under Title VII. The unrefuted facts show that the funeral home fired Stevens because she refused to abide by her employer's stereotypical conception of her sex, the judges wrote. Stevens said in a statement released by the American Civil Liberties Union that nobody should be fired from their job just for being who they are, adding, "I'm thrilled with the court's decision." Matthew Rost, a company manager and funeral director, told the Associated Press that the ruling doesn't surprise me, but declined further comments. See, this guy's aware. He knows. Gary McCaleb is an attorney with the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is representing the funeral home. He said in a statement that the opinion rewrites federal law and is directly contrary to decisions from other federal appellate courts. He added an appeal is being considered. Dan Korobkin. I don't know. I should say it with conviction, right?
Korobkin. I don't know.
Like Bearface did. Deputy Legal Director of the ACLU of Michigan called it a path-breaking decision that builds on another precedent-setting cases. Let me just say here for just a second. You do realize that a lot of these cases the ACLU takes up and some of the other atheist organizations take up, you do know that they pick on certain things on purpose in order to set precedent, right? Because if they can get one case won with something like this, then what they do is they build on it over and over and over again. And the next thing you know, there's all these cases. And even though it's completely insane under, quote, the law where normal people live, in the activism law, that's exactly what happens. So anyway, it says here, a growing number of courts have recognized transgender individuals are protected. It does address the funeral home's religious excuse in a comprehensive and powerful way that will be cited as law, and it will have an effect throughout the country too. The EEOC in 2014 sued the funeral home and a Florida eye clinic, saying it was the first time it had filed lawsuits to protect transgender people in the workplace. A year later, the commission reached a $150,000 settlement with Lakeland Eye Clinic of Lakeland, Florida. Brandy Branson was fired there in 2011 as director of hearing services after saying she was undergoing a gender transition to female. So I guess, so anyway, this is just sad. Okay. I mean, it's sad because, it's just sad. It's I'm trying to be judicious here. So yeah. Randall, you want to say something?
Well, it's like this. Imagine if an employee in whatever business, one that deals with the public, regardless, let's put aside something sensitive like funeral director, time of death when people are, bereavement when people are emotionally raw, but, eye clinic or whatever, and any kind of consultancy kind of business where, public are dealing with, face to face with someone. Let's say one of your employees starts wearing an ammo belt to work, an ammo belt, and maybe carries a hand grenade on their collar or something like that. The employer might say, that makes people uncomfortable. I realize that's not a live grenade, and the ammo belt really is you may feel buff and tough in that, but it kind of makes people uncomfortable. And an employer would probably win in a case like that, because it speaks of of guns, evil guns and stuff like that, makes people uncomfortable. But here's a man who shows up wearing women's clothing, and obviously it's not a good fit. And employer says, well, that might make our customers a little uncomfortable, and that's too bad. Suck it up, because he's here and he's queer and proud of it. So you have nothing to say in that matter. So I can think of a variety type of businesses where a manner of clothing, not having to do anything with his sexuality, orientation, hobbies, anything like that, which unrelated, I don't care what you do outside of the business. That's your own business. I mean, it doesn't have to do with doing the job, but if your manner of dress interferes with the company's livelihood, with the conducting of business, because it makes people uncomfortable, be it your blue hair or the safety pin through your nose, or whatever it is.
Hey, blue hair is in.
I know, but if depending, that might make you'd be great in clothing store for teens or young adults, whatever, something like that, it'd be hip. But for something like I don't know, something a little more conservative type business, I don't know what, financial plan or something like that, or I don't know, there's I'm not a quick thinker, but there are types of businesses where certain manner of dress would just not really fit, certainly not promote the brand, and would make customers uncomfortable. So regardless of, again, gender perception, whatever, I think is right for an employer that says, hey, that manner of clothing, that manner of attire makes our customers uncomfortable, and should have a right to say so.
Right. And I think an employer should have a right to, no shoes, no shirts, no service,
Right.
But, it's really sad about it. There's a couple of thoughts I have. The activist part of me really wants to be vocal, but I'm restraining myself because I don't want this show pulled from Facebook or YouTube. Okay. So, hey, in Turkey, let's look at this from like as I was teaching the children last night at church in Awana. Okay. Here's the thing. Last night, I live in Tennessee. Last night, the children told me that at the local school, 2 kids were actually put in detention. I guess they were in detention, but I don't know if they were in detention before. But anyway, 2 kids were emailing each other about God, and they got punished for it. Okay, that's here in Tennessee. And apparently it went all over the school because the kids that I teach are like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They were telling me this. What I know about this agenda, and this is talking about the agenda. This individual, this man transitioning to be a woman, in his mind, he thinks he's going to be, and that's ridiculous because you can't change your gender. He clearly has some unresolved issues that he has to deal with. What they are, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that our society has gone so far down that slippery slope that we are catering to the outliers in the world. And the transgender community is the outlier. Let's just put it that way. We got the normals, and then we got the outliers, the people who stand out. We've had Walt Heyer on the show, who lived himself as a woman, who got, transitioned back. The Lord healed him, and now he's living again as a man. He had bottom surgery. Now, I don't know how far this man has gone with his transition, but what I can say is that, if you were really born that way, if you're really born the opposite gender, then your body would reflect that. God doesn't make any mistakes. And so I look at this guy, and this is how I want to reframe it for this. He is actually a prisoner of war, as Twyla Paris would sing about in her song. I forgot the name of the song, but he's a prisoner of war, right? Satan is alive and well on planet Earth. And the number one reason Satan hates you and me is because we were made in God's image. Whether, that's a fact. Male and female, he created them both, right? We were made in God's image. So here's a man who's confused, and I believe the devil is confusing him, and he is being applauded by those in the medical community by saying, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead and do surgery on you. We'll give you some estrogen, make your voice higher, grow you some chest, girl stuff. And so he's really a prisoner. He should be pitied, really. We're at a point where people feel they can set their own morality, to them morals are what you feel. That's actually right. And you're Randall, right? I'm just make sure I got it. Russell. Thanks, Russell. Yeah. I mean, that's relativism, right? Feet firmly planted in midair, as Greg Koukl wrote in a book many years ago. We're not living under absolutes. This is just sad, right? We need to be praying for this guy. We need to pray that the Lord would help him, because here's the thing: what happens in this community, and I did research on this. Okay, I actually spoke at a Christian school conference a number of years ago, and I actually researched the transgender community pretty in depth. All you gotta do is go online and read the blogs of transgender individuals, and they have nightmares. They are full of anxiety, usually post-traumatic stress disorder. Many of them have been sexually abused. And some of the blogs I came across had such horrific drawings that they had in order to try to process stuff. It's sad. He's a prisoner of the devil. Okay. Just going to say it that way. I don't know if he identifies as a Christian or not, but he's deceived if he is a Christian. But the lobby is targeting believers. And, Randall, you made a great point when you were talking about a funeral home, right? Of all places to go when somebody has died, you don't want to have to deal with the politics of the LGBT lobby when you're trying to bury a loved one. That's just ridiculous. And then they mentioned the eye center, which, apparently had to settle. And I have a girlfriend here who I play pickleball with, who is, she is a CT scan expert. And I shared this story before, but she was telling me that they couldn't actually give an x-ray to one of the patients because the person identified as a male but were clearly female, and they needed to find out if she was pregnant or not. And she refused to answer the question and cried discrimination. That's here in Tennessee, okay? The Bible Belt, just so you know. Hi, David. I don't know if Randall's going to say hi to you, but I did, just so you know. Anyway, so I know it's, kind of technically past our time, but do you want to do the last two stories or no? I
can save them for another time because,
okay.
Yeah, it would take too long.
All right, so we're going to end it here. I'm going to tweet out some of the other stories. I will say that one of the other stories involves a student who actually stood up in class and said, hey, there's two genders, male and female. He was punished for it. And as a result, he might not be able to graduate because he needs the class that he stood up and said male and female in. That's happening in America. And it's not a mistake, because the devil, his job is to kill, steal, and destroy. He hates you because you're made in God's image. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. God knit you together in your mother's womb. Don't ever, 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 ever forget it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? But against all the unseen wickedness, the spiritual forces in dark places. That's where the real warfare is. So when I see stories like this, we got to have a heart of compassion, but let's just face it, we can get outraged because it's ridiculous, but that person is a prisoner of war. So just remember that, okay? All right, tomorrow I have a guest. We're going to be talking about the topic of loneliness with my guest. And so if you want to know who that is, join my email list. I'll send the email to you. All the info will be in there. And thank you guys for coming in, being part of the show tonight on all platforms. Totally appreciate it. And be bold, stand up, and go with God, because he loves you. Yeah, he does.